Hello, 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 everyone. How are you? Wow, you are on the Transatlantic Call-In Show here with Lux Alexander and myself, Josie Caballero. How are you today, Lux?
I'm a little bit frazzled. I'm just like, it's 2 hours earlier for me. I moved, and now
Mm.
it is um 2 hours earlier. So it's like noon. So I'm like trying to get my errands running in the morning, and then I was like, oh crap, like I have TACIS and I haven't eaten anything, so I'm a little bit like high energy, but I'm ready. I'm like
High
getting in
energy.
the zone. Probably
Yeah,
should
I
breathe.
I feel that. Just breathe. You are now in a safer area of the country, so at least you have that to think about,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
which is super great. That's really good to know, and it makes me happy for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have also been doing a lot of work. It's only been about 2.5 weeks, and it feels like it's been a year. I honestly yesterday I was like finally processing all of it because my year
Mm.
started in Vegas. Like, I actually was there for, like, 11 days for work, and that's a lot of Vegas, all right? That's a lot of Vegas,
That's a lot of
and
anywhere.
when I yeah, I know, right? And then I got home, and now I've started to catch up. My inbox is starting to get under control, and then I just sat and I was just like, "Let me process some of the things that I've been, putting through," and yeah, that was when things got really rough. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is awful in every way possible," and it wasn't even the trans stuff, it was just everything else too. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, damn you, political science degree, making
I
me
know.
be able to see patterns and know how the future may land.
Yeah, I feel like you probably have a more secure idea because, like, I always feel like I am making these predictions and then I'm not actually I'm like surprised then by the next thing that happens. So it's good that we have your solid presence to help explain what's going on.
Yeah, I got a lot of explaining. I mean, I have reporters calling me for like transgender veteran stuff because I'm also the incoming president of the Transgender American Veteran Association. And I literally
Mhm.
told the reporter, I was like, things are happening so fast, and I have three talking point documents in front of me right now, and I don't have the one that you need. So
Mhm.
how about you just call my colleague? I'm just gonna pass you over to my colleague because I'm not gonna stress out trying to have this conversation with you right now. And that's the
Delegation.
state I'm at right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
delegation is important.
exactly. Yeah,
But anyway, we're here
exactly.
now. We're here to talk to
Yes, we
people. We're
are.
here to answer your questions, uh, chat with you all, get some calls in here today. So, yeah. Do we have any other uh, top of show announcements that we need to do? Oh, yeah. What's the phone number? The phone number. Call the phone number.
The
It's in
phone
the
number.
description.
It's
Yeah.
720-619-2288, and you can always call in the web link description.
Mhm.
And we are going to be taking your calls. This is your opportunity to talk to real life trans people about any type of questions that you may have. If you are wanting to know more about why we exist, to anything that you may think will be relevant or something that we could talk about, I'm always happy to take your random political call too. So that's always fun as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just ready to chat with all of you. And yes, and also I
Last
think
week's
we can
poll,
go ahead.
too.
Yep, I was going to start
Yeah.
with last week's poll. Yes.
I don't know who
So,
was
do
on
you
last
think
week. Who
It
I
was
who
Ben
actually
and
got to talk
I.
about this? Oh, okay.
it,
So Josie and I get
okay,
to
great.
hit this fresh.
Yes, we do. So, do you think that teachers using their students' pronouns or using different name could reasonably be considered practicing medicine without a license? What do you think, Lux?
Yeah, my initial thoughts is that this is the problem with medicalizing transness and like medicalizing trans access to care. You know, there are countries on this planet where you can just go to the pharmacy and they give you the medicine that you want, including cross-sex hormones. Um, like I'm pretty sure I was just reading about it in like Thailand or a similar Asian country. So like I obviously this is stupid. The idea that using a different name can be considered medical treatment, but like this is how we have created trans care. Like you, obviously with kids, you take them to the psychiatrist or whatever, and they encourage social transition as a first step. And this is considered a non-medical intervention, although places like the UK and apparently here now, they're trying to say, yeah, that like this is a type of practicing medicine. And again, it's that problem of pathologizing transness that like it's a medical diagnosis, whether you consider it a mental health diagnosis or a medical diagnosis, either way, that creates a situation where even basic non-medical interventions like affirmation are being twisted into being like a type of practicing medicine. And that's where you then have this, what is the phrase that I keep hearing out of the UK? Like, social transition is not a neutral step, is what they say. But like also disallowing social transition is not a neutral stance. So yeah, I think obviously this is really stupid, but I can see how the wedge in happened. And this is part of why I'm on the same page with, people like Abigail from YouTube, where she's just like firmly against the medicalization of this. Obviously, you need access to medicine, but it doesn't need to have this construct around my opinion on
Right.
it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just another way for them to try to medicalize the language, to try to use their reach to try to affect the education system. And that's really what it's about, where it's like, oh, this has no place in like public life, and trying to just make it this thing where it's like if teachers are doing this and they are practicing medicine when it's not the case. Like, could you imagine like if it's like somebody put a ramp because somebody has mobility issues and they put a ramp in. It's like this school, they're practicing medicine without a license. How dare
Crazy.
they actually do this mobility ramp here? It just really is going beyond the scope of what the reality is. But I could see that most people also agree, and this is probably one of the higher percentages of not at 97%. Usually we don't even have that clear of a decisive, like, this is bull crap.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we're going to take a look at the next poll, and then we'll take our first call, and then we will come back to it and we'll put it in the chat. So do you think that trans military ban will compromise our national security? Yes or no? And I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, my answer
So
is yes with no expertise. So why don't you go ahead?
well, we'll go ahead
Yeah, yeah,
after
yeah.
we
After.
take our first
You'll get
call.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will get that. Great. So, just taking a list as we are filling up the lines. So make sure you get your call in as soon as you can, to make sure that you can get in the queue. We're going to be taking your calls. So just taking a quick peek here. Let's see. Um, let's see. I will say, let's just go ahead and just go right down the list. So we'll just start with the
Sure.
first call. What do you think? Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, wonderful. So we are going to be hearing from Emma Grace, they, she pronouns from South Carolina. How are you today?
I'm all right as far as I can be. How about y'all?
Yeah, pretty
About the
much.
same. Yeah, feeling the same way. So you have a question about gender affirming care, and repro justice work. So what's your question?
Um, so I'm wondering how to uh, be a better advocate when it comes to things such as specifically queer lactation and chest feeding in restricted care states. There are laws where I live in effect right now, which actually started last year with a uh, like ban on trans affirming care for children, that facilities who receive any public funds can't provide trans-specific healthcare. So the medical university was like the first to capitulate and shut down trans clinics, and
Mhm.
other hospitals have done the same over the last several months. And many doctors and educators have been terminated or left the state. And it feels like it's been like hunting for cryptids to like find pathways for clients, because I'm an educator and a doula and a lactation educator, to get the care that they deserve. And it's even more difficult than like having someone say they need to end a pregnancy to like do logistics to get them to another state, because healthcare like chest feeding often takes just so much longer and more medical support and supervision. So I want to hear from people who've been in the arena of advocacy longer than I have for ideas of finding community healthcare that trans people around me need and will continue to need.
Yeah. So just to reboil your question down, what you're trying to say is like you want to enter this space of advocacy for this particular issue, and you're just wondering
I've been
how to get.
in it.
Okay. So what is your like quick question? Just boil it down.
How
I'm
do I
sorry.
help
Yeah, go ahead.
people? No worries. Sorry, I'm very long-winded.
It's
How
okay.
to help people who are queer and want to build their families and pursue chest feeding, how to help them find community health care in a red state or get to a place where they can have health care.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. A lot of places to start, and making sure that the local community centers have the resources that they need. A lot of queer people, when they need any type of support in any way, usually go to the community center first. What I mean by community centers, like your local LGBTQ issue pride center, any of the groups that are local in the area, and see what resources they have. Now, if you have been doing work in that and you realize, hey, you don't have any documentation about these particular issues, you can say, well, here's what I recommend. Could we start a group? And then that's kind of how you build out from there, because it's already a touch point where queer people are already going for these levels of support. So I would start there, and then you can also communicate with the community center to see what is also lacking in their outreach. So sometimes community centers is like, well, we're here, but we're small. We really don't have an outreach team. We're hoping to reach rural communities, and then they can maybe point you in a direction where they're lacking, so they can actually give those resources more likely as well. And Lux, do you have anything to add to that? And I'm going to open the door because my dog feels like she's trapped.
I would say, yeah, as far as like helping trans people find access to care, and like the question here kind of being, so many clinics are shutting down or hospitals have stopped their programs because of the funding issue. Well, I guess my thing, if I was working in the healthcare system, like something that I would be trying to do is network with physicians who are not partnered with hospitals. So like my doctor back in Kansas actually had like a concierge service where he no longer worked with hospitals, he no longer worked with a clinic. He basically like provides care independently, which does mean that he's limited on certain things. Like I couldn't get my Ritalin prescription from him, for example. But so any provider who doesn't work directly with a hospital, who is not therefore at risk of losing funding, sometimes the issue with that is that those doctors, because they're independent, like maybe they don't take insurance at all, or maybe they only take certain kinds of insurance, or like my doctor had a concierge service, which means it was a monthly subscription, basically, for me to have his services at my disposal. So I would say as a care provider, that would be one major thing that I would do, because the problem with this is that trans care is being pushed underground, right? So it's harder to find
Yeah.
these people. And of course, trans people are not telling you this publicly. We're like, hey, did you hear about this doctor that's still working out of such and such building? Like, it's not going to be publicized in that way. So, like, using your access as a personal care provider to network with as many individuals as you can to be like, oh, yeah, by the way, like, this person still provides this care, even though blah, 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 whatever, So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Go ahead, Emma.
I've because my therapist is one of the few who like provide HRT referrals and stuff in the state. Like we've talked about this too. And it's so hard to find people underground because I'm also queer and just I get that networking and stuff. There just needs to be someone to start it. The last
Yeah.
IBCLC lactation consultant, I'm an educator, like that's out of my scope. So like we need more consultants. has like kind of gone under the radar and stuff, and no one knows where she is and stuff. And so that is really hard, but it is, I guess, what I needed to hear. And doing more networking, I guess.
It really
always
is.
feels like pivoting and pivoting and pivoting with the with laws, but again, with the do not comply stuff, we're gonna keep doing this work. It's gonna keep happening. It's just
absolutely
hard.
And it's historic, right? In queer communities, civil rights movements, marginalized communities have been dealing with their own self-care underground, word of mouth, knowing and recommending this is the person you go to. That's just kind of the state of where we are, and we have to hunker down and build resiliency and building these networks, especially these word of mouth networks of like, if somebody's queer and they want to have children and need those services, they can start asking their other queer networks, and it's like, oh yeah, I know Emma Grace. They talk about this in a way that's really, really important. So I'm going to now reach back out, and that's usually how it happens. It's just the word of mouth networks. But yeah, so I hope that is helpful, and yeah, thank you for calling.
Yeah, it's just so interesting because so many of the protocols for this, just a lot of gender affirming care, are cis-normative to begin with in nature, but have the capability to be inclusive and accessible.
Agreed.
And yeah.
Well,
I'm sure that
so
there's
much for
a
your
lot
call.
of queer-friendly doulas and midwives who would probably be good to get to know here too, if you don't already.
Yeah, I'm a queer doula.
Nice.
Great. Nice. Thank you for the work that you do.
I need more people to know me.
Yeah,
yes,
there you
go. Exactly. Yeah, well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and you have a great rest of your day.
All right, thanks. Y'all too.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was a little bit of a shorter call. Do you want to take one more before we jump on the poll?
Oh, let's discuss the poll really quick. Let's give them something
Okay,
juicy.
we'll discuss the
I don't
poll.
know that we have very many
All right.
oppositional callers today, so
I think we have one that looks pretty interesting to me. So we have a couple that are interesting on here. So do you think that the trans-military ban will compromise our national security? And in our chat, it looks like 81% say yes and 19% say no. I'm also on the yes side of things. I was on a lot of not blogs. Why did I say blogs? I was on Facebook chats and groups that I was on this morning. And it was a group that I've been a part of for, I don't know, more than a decade. It's basically a group that is full of people who served on as a reactor operator in the Navy, or just nuclear engineering. It was funny because Alyssa and Gwen, friend in the chat, had tagged me, and I was like, oh, let me read this thread. And it was really interesting to see how many people were like, no, this is not right. We need people that need the work, especially from a community that needs a lot of workers, because nuclear power training is so intensive, so difficult. And one thing that I've realized is that I've talked to a lot of active duty service members that are currently working, from pilots to nukes to intelligence to translators, every high skilled job that you can imagine a trans person is probably doing it. In fact, studies are now starting to show that it's over 70% of positions that trans people hold in the military are actually high skilled, high intellectual, just high skilled work, and something that takes years of time to be able to replace those workers. So in the short term, this will definitely affect our national security, because a lot of these folks are just doing their work, doing their job. And the thing that scares me the most now, this is what almost gave me a panic attack yesterday. So I'll go ahead and share what exactly it was. And I know, here it is, everybody. Take some deep breaths, ground yourself with me. So we have had a national recruitment crisis in the country for several years now.
that does not
People
surprise
just
me.
didn't want to do it. Right. But this is the bad news and good news for the military, bad news for all of us. That recruitment crisis literally ended last month. In 1 month, the crisis ended. They had the highest recruitment numbers that they've had. The Army had the highest recruitment numbers that they've had in a long, long time. Years, 3 times as much. And so what that tells me is that the sycophants are joining the military. I'll
Yeah.
say the Nazis are joining the military. The white
Yeah.
supremacists are joining the military. The
Yeah.
people who want to serve underneath this new administration are joining the military at a very high and rapid clip. That
Yeah.
scares me a lot because I've always seen the military as one of our last lines of defense, because most military members are trained to be able to understand that you can say no to your commanding officer if they are
Mhm.
doing something unlawful and they're giving you an unlawful order.
Yeah.
And you have to be right. You better be right, but you can say no. And one of the things about the German military in the Nazi Germany in the 40s was the fact that they were just following orders, right? They were just following orders. They didn't have the ability to say no to their commanding officers, so they were just following orders. I'm sure people have heard that before. It's just following orders. I didn't know, but in the military, just following orders isn't enough to get you out of problems. If
I
you're like,
mean,
well, you were
according
just
to the Nuremberg trials, internationally, just following orders is not enough to get you off of
right.
charges. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So now we are getting a lot of people who are ready to follow those orders because
Mhm.
they know that a lot of them may be unlawful. And I always thought, there would be enough people to say, no, I'm not driving a tank down the streets of California. And a lot of people would be like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I really
Mhm.
had a lot of faith in those people to be like, no, I'm not doing that. But with this new influx of troops over the next 2 years, they're going to be in leadership position. And now we have Hexat just like moving platoons around and being like, oh, we're just doing training exercises in California. These people haven't seen combat yet.
Mm.
And so it terrifies me so much. And it is one of the things that made me do a little hyperventilation last night. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Because it's incredibly scary. It's incredibly
Mhm.
scary to see that this is happening. In fact, so much so that we can't even use it as a talking point anymore about kicking trans people out of the military is going to cause more severe recruitment crisis numbers because it's no longer true.
Yeah.
It is horrifying. It's
Yeah.
horrifying.
I guess I wouldn't have gone with the recruitment angle anyway, because does this sound right to you? About 18,000 transgender service members? Does that number sound at ballpark?
So this is one thing we're doing. I will say yes. However, we don't talk about that publicly too loudly anymore because we don't want to set a goal for the administration. So if we
Sure.
say yes, but it's probably higher than that.
Okay. But
That
for
are
the purposes of
actively
like demonstrating the impact on our national security, if 70% of 18,000 employees are in high skilled, experienced, positions, um, that's a large number of people to potentially just suddenly have a vacuum now of, as we've talked about before, like military doctors and other high ranking officials and people who are working in military research and stuff. Like, it would obviously negatively impact our national security, but also, like, I don't think this administration cares about that. We're
Mhm.
appealing to a Republican ideal here without like registering like the Republican Party does not care about that, or they would not be letting Elon Musk and his 20-year-olds gut our US Treasury situation. So yeah, they don't care.
It's bad, and the thing is, it's not just trans people either. The female commandant, cis woman commandant of the Coast Guard, the day 2 days after Trump was put into office, was given 3 hours to leave her home. She didn't even have time to pack her things as she got kicked out of the military for DEI reasons. First
Mm,
commandant in the Coast Guard's history, the highest ranking officer in the Coast Guard, was literally ripped from her home because she was a woman purely. And so we are going to be the military is just one of those things that make me very anxious when I start thinking about what is our military going to look like in 4 years, is the thing that makes me incredibly nervous, because it's just like those new troops coming into the military right now, they're going to put them in Gaza. Like, I mean, that's what's going to end up happening, because they're not going to have any care. It's like, I'm here, I'm going to do the job. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. And so it's horrifying. So you're welcome, chat. You're welcome, everybody, for that positive little spin on what I think is going to happen there.
Yay.
So yeah, fun. So with that, we will go ahead and go
Hold
to
on,
our
real quick,
call.
before we move on.
Yes. The show.
Hit
the
like
show
on the
schedule.
video. No, I don't care
Yes.
about that.
You don't care about that?
Sure we do need
Who
to do the
does?
schedule.
Who
But I'm
does?
just saying,
Yeah.
everybody, don't forget to support this show, to support trans people being active and out, and still very much drawing attention to ourselves. Hit like on the show. You can share the show. You can $5 or more super chat, and we will read them. You can do a smaller super chat. We just won't read them, because like we materially benefit from this directly, and that helps, get the show out to more people, the more you interact with the show. So thank you very much for your support, everybody. We thank you very much for being here.
We need it more than ever. We need it more than ever. I mean, we just saw the equality movement lose. HRC laid off 20% of its employees. GLSEN just laid off 60% of their employees. And Trevor Project has laid off their employees as well.
What are they doing?
So we've had, it's because of the way they're structured. A lot of federal grants, a lot of corporate dollars as well. All that money is being withheld. Luckily, my organization at Advocates for Trans Equality, we have not lost we haven't gotten any layoffs. We still need money, but we rely a lot on small dollar donations. Believe it or not, small dollar donations could keep an organization alive. So it really does mean everything, because when you don't have to rely on grants and major donors, you can actually have the ability to survive more legitimately in the spaces of defiance. Yep. And we're more independent that way. So thank you, small donors. We love you. And please do that. Yes. Great. And then we'll go over the show schedule after this call. So I think we'll go ahead and talk to Yoshi, him from Texas, wants to be educated on trans issues and wants to have a chill talk to understand. How are you, Yoshi?
I'm doing excellent. How are y'all doing today?
Doing great.
Good? Doing good.
Doing great in the face of diversity.
Y'all want to start it? Y'all are hosting. Y'all want to start this off? Or?
Well, I would love to know, in particular, you say you want to be educated on trans issues. So for the sake of the show, I'd like to start with what you think, and we can then start from there. So like, what is the biggest contentious thing that you think, or things that you don't know about trans people that you wish you did know a little bit more about?
Okay. So you asked my thoughts on it. I tend to reserve my opinions until I know more about things, hence the reason me calling and getting it from people that would know straight from the horse's mouth, or maybe. Sure. I don't know. Am I talking to trans people now? Or
yes,
you guys,
are. I'm a trans woman. Yes.
Got you.
Go
So
ahead.
Both of you are we're born anatomically male?
I don't, I'm free to answer myself. I will say that I was assigned male at birth, yes. And I would love to be able to answer that question. But yes,
I'm coming from the other direction.
Might be a personal question. We can avoid talking about ourselves, and we can talk about the content if you'd like.
Sure. So yes. We are trans, not cis, meaning that we do not align with the sex and gender that we were assigned at birth.
Right. Is there a simpler way of saying all that? Because I just get lost in like words sometimes.
Sure.
Like
let's back up a little bit. So I appreciate you being honest about like I just don't know and I don't know where to even begin. So that really shows that you are trying to come at this in good faith. So I'll start with a question to investigate and interrogate a little. So do you believe that there's a difference between
Excellent.
gender and sex?
Yes. In fact, there's a guy who works. I don't know if he works with the ACA or he's just part of the line crew. But Forrest Valkai
Yeah.
has done an excellent job putting in videos about the science behind it and updated science on it and the new stuff in the DSM-5. Is that right? Is that the latest?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's the most recent one, DSM-5.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So going
Yeah,
so
so I'm familiar
so
with the distinguishing gender and sex. I'm familiar with
okay.
that, and I'm curious where the line is drawn because it seems like almost like the two things could be definitely separate, but it's not so black and white. Sometimes they could kind of bleed into one another.
That is true. That is true. And it depends on how people kind of align with that. But in most of the way that we look at the world, and I usually speak from a social lens, but I do know enough about biology to speak on it. But I usually try to use like political implications, social point of views of why things are structured the way they are through social construction and community colloquial like language and all of that type of stuff. So if there is a difference between gender and sex, we're going to go back to your first question. Is there a simpler way to say trans, like explaining trans to somebody? So if you understand that there's a distinction between sex and gender, sex is what you're assigned at birth, so therefore you're like your biological factors, reproductive organs, chromosomes, gamete production, all of that type of stuff. Trans people understand that there's a lived reality of the biological nature of just the way humans are, typically born, and so what a trans person is someone who doesn't align with the assignment of that gender, which people try to conflate with sex. So if you are assigned male at birth and you are grow up and be a man, that is what we use as cis, and that's like on the same side of, so therefore it's kind of like what majority of the people are.
Okay.
And if you don't align with that, let's say for my example, I was assigned male at birth, but I identify as a woman in my gender identity. Therefore, I am trans. I am a trans woman.
Right, right. I'm not a big labeler. I don't like to label things as much as I like to understand things and to have interchangeable labels almost for things. Like to me, words are placeholders for meaning. So it's better to get across your meaning than it is just to get the right words said a lot of times for me.
So
So
Yoshi,
I would
like
say, like, if
labels.
you want a label for
Hold on,
me,
I want to stop you for a second.
yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
I just want to say, like, as far as the descriptors of how we use words and labels. So, for example, like a computer used to not be a word that used to be in our language. So we were able to say, okay, a computer is what we have, and then inside that computer there's circuit boards, there's chips, there's resistors, there's transistors, there's all of these little things, and we have to label them. But for an average, human, you could say the circuit board. But for somebody who's working on
Uh,
circuit boards, it's important to know what labels are inside of that circuit board so you can actually do work inside of that circuit board. So it really comes down to what level of jargon you want to get into something more deeply and more detailed. So that's why when we're talking about gender, we're using more descriptive language of, let's say, cis and trans and all of the different words that we're using, so we can be more descriptive when we're digging into the deeper topic of trans and gender identity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What I was saying was actually prefacing a point that I may have lost now, but that's okay.
Sure, I'm sorry.
I appreciate. Well, I called to be educated, so I appreciate that. When we're talking about more complicated things, as you said, like the more descriptive language that we can use, the better. So, in order to distinguish tiny little pieces, but whenever you zoom out into a more floodlighted view, I think that more simple language can be helpful sometimes. So not always more descriptive words, sometimes less descriptive words can be useful too for different situations.
I agree.
And back to your question on did you ask me like my? No, I don't think you asked, but like if someone were to try to label me either is it Sith like Darth Vader,
Cis.
like or Sith?
No,
It's
Cis.
it's
Like sis,
CIS.
like you my bro and I'm sis. I'm a bro, but you can call me sis if you want. Not, but
CIS.
that's just a label.
So like
honestly,
cis, like
I'm
sister, like
by
cis.
your definition. Yeah, sis with a T.
Yeah,
No.
no.
So let me cut
It's
in.
just
Hold
cis.
on. I haven't gotten a single word in this whole call. Give me a second. So the full word that you're looking for is cisgender. So it's like transgender.
Yeah.
We say trans as a shorthand, but transgender is the full term. And that's describing a person whose gender is different than the sex that they were assigned at birth. Cisgender
Right.
means on the same side. So trans means on the opposite side, and cis means on the same side. And it's spelled CIS. And it sounds like other terms. I know, like cyst or sissy or whatever. But yeah, CIS, cisgender,
Yes.
means
I'm
your
sorry.
gender is on the same side.
Okay, I just want to make clear right now that I joke a lot, but I'm taking this call very seriously, and I'm not
Sure.
trolling you guys. So
You're fine.
Yeah. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, I would by your definition of trans, like that, if you're assigned male at birth, but you don't really totally feel that and agree with that, or the roles that come along with that, then that could be considered a trans person, correct? Or
If they
is that
self-identify.
too simplified?
Go ahead, Lux.
Generally speaking,
Is that
like a transgender identity is basically like it's a very broad term. We could say like gender nonconforming might describe a man who is not okay with gender roles, right? But like to be trans is to have like an earnest identity that is like, so it's like, yeah, there's a lot of men out there who like don't really care about living up to masculine ideals, but they still identify as men, even if, let's say, like they're a really effeminate gay man, right? Like, but there is a subcategory of man that can be feminine and gay and still be considered a man. And then there's like an extra step of like, I actually feel disconnected from all versions of the social role of man that I could possibly embody. And I feel more at home with a version of a different gender identity. Go ahead and cut in, Yoshi. Go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah. So, thank you. So, if I don't identify as a man and I identify more as like a spirit, like this, I have I'm spirit and I'm inhabiting a anatomically male body that I don't feel the need to play certain roles that are societally expected of me as an anatomical man. Would you consider that person to be trans as well?
I mean, I guess it depends on what spirit is. I mean, like, if we're getting into like a quasi-religious area.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess
spirit
essentially
is just another word. You know, we're using lots of words here. Let me define spirit for you. Let me have a chance to do that since you're asking me what I mean by it, which is fair. I would say that spirit would be consciousness. So that means what it is in each of us that is animating us in order to be able to use our intellect and our tongues and make small mouth noises so that we kind of understand each other. I would say it'd be that, the consciousness, the awareness itself, which is unidentifiable by science, right? So we can't point to it with that. So we're going to have to use something else, a different kind of science, I guess, which would be called
baby.
what?
Oh, baby, Yoshi, I love you so much. we are now having a very different discussion, which I'm happy to have because I never get on any of the regular atheist
I can
shows.
call Matt Dillahunchy for this one if we want to save it for that.
Yeah, because like I'm like, what's the thing animating you? Electricity, baby. We know the answer to that question. It's electricity.
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
But yeah. But like, yeah, what is it that makes trans people
Thank you for the
identify as
compliment,
being
by
trans?
the way.
Yeah. That's just a very different conversation. So I think part of what Josie was trying to establish is kind of trying to figure out where it is that your question is here. So like, what is it about transness that, you know, that you need elucidated? And I think that you're kind of driving toward, at least I have the sense that what we're driving toward here is a conversation about like what makes people what they are in essence, like what makes you your personality. Am I on the right track?
No, not necessarily. Okay. My question is really what are the best ways to talk about this with one another, with in general a language that we could all share, because not a lot of people, especially where I'm from in Central Texas, are well versed in science.
That's where I was born and raised. Born and raised in Central Texas.
Yeah. So it's like I just want to find a way to be able to communicate with everyone productively. So it's like I'm a language hacker, I guess you could say, and I like to try to build bridges between people.
Okay. So Yoshi, let me jump in. I'm also from Central North Texas, Dallas Fort Worth area, where I was born and raised. So I was raised in a conservative household, and yeah, I had to talk to my parents about being trans and what that meant for me. And it took a little bit of time because I had to use the language that eventually, you know, spoke to them in a way that they understand. I was just on the phone with my mom the other day, where she was just like, "I don't understand why these bills are happening." She's a conservative, and she was like, "I don't understand why these executive orders are happening to trans people." She goes, "You're a woman. It's obvious you're a woman. Why are they putting an M on your passport? That doesn't even make any sense," type stuff, right? And you know, my mom wasn't saying you're a trans woman, but she was just saying you're a woman. And when you were talking about like blowing out the language, right, to like this floodlight point of view of this, I'm gonna illuminate that right now. So for example, I'm gonna ask you a very simple question. A redheaded woman, a black woman, a Asian woman, a cis woman, and a trans woman, are they all a type of woman?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. So there is a categorical way of taking a look at like woman, man, non-binary, people, humans. There's always a categorical way of taking a look at things. So in reality, if I was in a group of women, you wouldn't be like, "Oh, that trans woman over there." You'd be like, "No, that woman with the curly dark hair with the glasses." Because you would just be.
You're right about that. I would.
Right. So at that moment, you are using general language to describe my identity without having to use the word trans at all. So when we're talking about these issues, especially when we're trying to educate people around us about the existence of trans people, we are trying to understand, like, there's no reason I should have any less rights than any other woman that's walking around in society, right? Like, I should be able to interact in public life. I should be able to not have those things restricted from me just for the sake that I identify as a woman, but yet I was assigned male at birth. And so when I'm talking in very general terms, that's what I'm usually saying to people, because I actually work in, political and activist work, where I am trying to talk to people who have never met a trans person in their entire lives. And I have to try to, in a few minutes, if not a few seconds, try to describe my lived experience as a trans person and fight for my community to be able to say people deserve human rights. Right. So that's kind of the angle that I take it. So without having to use cis, without even really having to use trans that often, without having to use a lot of the jargon that we were talking about going into like gamete production and all that type of stuff, like we're talking about like the inner workings of a circuit board when we just want to talk about the computer. Right, like, and so
Right.
so for me, that's kind of how I look at language, and I feel like a lot of times on a lot of calls that we have here and people in society that are very obsessed about the trans issue start going into the really deep detailed language of things where they want to split hairs at the most minute level and trying to like
Yeah, yeah.
take us away from the basic point of view of like we deserve human rights, right? And so
Amen.
that's
Amen to
really
that.
that right, like for example, we were talking at the beginning of the show about military members having access to be able to serve, right? I'm a trans veteran. I know a lot of trans people who are in the military right now. Why should we remove them from service if there's no reason to, right? It's just like they're fit, they pass all the readiness tests, they're qualified, they do all the work, and they want to serve our country. It looks like you should be able to serve if you're an American citizen that way. But there are people who are saying no for arbitrary reasons. So that's kind of where I land. What do you think about all that, Yoshi? Especially when it comes to language
I
and like zooming out.
well, I think that everybody should have a right to express themselves as they would like to, if they're not hurting anybody. And if it confuses people and makes life harder on them, why, first of all, why, how or why? And, and then we can go into it. But I don't think anybody wanting to identify in a certain way or dress a certain way or sound a certain way or play certain roles is anybody else's business. But the only thing that I would like to go into like a deeper conversation about, like, each individual has their own reasons for wanting to express themselves the way they do. And I just wonder, when it comes to changing your body on the outside in drastic ways, is it possible that there may be underlying discontentment with what's been given to you from birth? So like, yes, we're assigned male or female by man, and I'm using that in a general, mankind,
I hear
people,
sure. I know what you mean.
humankind. Sorry. Yeah. I'm old school. Well,
So-
I'm not really, but we're assigned that by humans, but in a way, I guess, if I'm allowed to use the word God, well, let's say the universe has assigned you either male or female from birth. That,
Sure.
and that we're talking about sex there, not gender. But sexually speaking, you're assigned either male or female when you come into this world. And so my question is it possible that I'm not going to call it a mental disorder, but maybe a spiritual thing happening that causes people to do this? And I'm not even saying it's either right or wrong. I'm just saying, would you psychological, let's say, instead of spiritual, since spirit I've defined as consciousness, so it would be a psychological phenomenon. We've already I think both agree on that point, but I guess we could have a more nuanced conversation about which pieces, instead of being black and white about it, like which pieces of it are healthy and unhealthy to a person's psychology. And I think that can be looked at through a more general sense. And like, yes, we're all individuals and have individualistic expression, but we also are all human and we all share qualities and things. So maybe there is.
So Yoshi,
patterns there.
not to mean to cut you off. I'm just trying to make it concise because we're trying to take a
No,
bunch of
I was
callers as
long-winded
well.
there. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
No
absolutely.
worries.
We can wrap this
and
up
then
whenever y'all want.
Yeah, no worries. So when you were discussing essentially, I should have wrote this down, but you were talking about. Oh my gosh, my train of thought. I lost it. Lux, you want to go first and then I'll
Yes.
get back? Go for it.
I'm so
Please.
ready. So I
Go.
personally am in favor of ease of communication, right? I think it's something that I did appreciate about Buck Angel the most recent time I tried to listen to him talk, is like, I don't think that there is inherently a problem with with a trans person saying like, I was born a woman and I identify as this, because it's like, I'm trying to get across an idea. And honestly, a lot of the myopia that we get into, because I am an expert on transness and you're here to call me as an expert on transness, I'm going to use vocabulary sometimes that is not what I would use if I was just talking to someone out in the street. So we have like, if we want to reach working class people, you have to be willing to kind of scale back the language to a place where it's like, I don't expect this person to have an academic level of vocabulary around this. So, like, I actually don't even really have a problem with you as a potentially religious person, Yoshi, describing transness as a spiritual disconnect, because that is something that trans people have said before. Like, I have the soul of a woman in a man's body. And if that accomplishes the goal of communicating to someone that this is a core trait, I think that that is an acceptable way to talk to people out and about in the world. Now, kind of getting to your question of, first of all, I would not describe the changes that a trans person goes through as drastic. I know that a lot of people kind of have this big idea about like surgery is drastic. But most of the changes that human beings go through when we go through like the quote unquote sex change, it's not really that much of a difference. It's not like cutting off your arm. You know, like I would say that like one of those is drastic and the other one is just like reconstructive surgery or whatever. Um and like as to whether that is indicative of like a spiritual illness or a psychological illness, like we've kind of looked into that. We've studied it quite a bit, and it seems like no matter how drastic the action appears from the outside, for people who are going through it and seeking this surgery or that treatment or whatever, it seems like it has a positive benefit. You know, way that is different from, we've got these other drastic things that people will do, like get a get like butt implants or hip implants or facial
Mhm.
reconstructive
Yeah.
surgery for
Or
non-trans
rib
reasons.
removal.
Yeah. Those
Good point.
things, we've studied that, and it looks like that is harmful and people become addicted to those procedures. And then you have people like whatever that guy's name was, he made himself look Korean. I can't remember his
Oh
name.
yeah,
But you know
Ollie
who I mean.
London.
Yeah, Ollie
Oh,
London.
wow.
So, yeah, it seems like from everything that we've been able to study with trans people, the procedures, and of course, there's probably one trans person who's existed in the world who's done an Ollie London and gone crazy with it, you know, but
Yeah,
for the
sure.
overwhelming most part, it seems like the spiritual sickness of being disconnected from your body is worse than the outcomes that we see from people seeking out those procedures, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just want to
Yeah.
pop in really
Excellent.
quick as well. I just want to pop in really quick as well is the idea that you started the premise of like people have the freedom to be able to do what they need to do to be able to live, and it's none of my business type of thing. Just like I wouldn't go to a person with a tattoo on their palm or in their hand or whatever, and I'd be like, "Wow, you put a dragon on your hand? Aren't you afraid you're never going to get hired?" Is it
I'm
there?
never
Is
gonna
it a
get hired
dragon?
with my visible tattoo. No, it's just a
You never,
semicolon.
never. It's a
It's
little
just my
semicolon.
easily accessible visible
Oh,
tattoo.
okay. I love it. I love it. But it really comes down to when does it stop, right? When you're talking about freedom, you talk about people's bodily autonomies and things like that. I would, if you start saying we're going to police people's bodies and procedures that they're going to be able to get, it's only a step away before people say, okay, face tattoos are now illegal, neck tattoos are now illegal. You can't have, this surgery. Oh, you can't, do things that, people want to do to their bodies, which is their business, their own personal understanding of how they show up. And it goes beyond just transness. It's just people should have that right to be able to present in a way that they, as long as they're not hurting anybody, they should be able to present the way that they choose to present. So when it comes to like transness, a lot of times people bring up surgeries because exactly what Lux said about it's drastic. And yeah, I did do, because I have gender dysphoria, I was like, I did some surgical care on top of my medical transition. I am much happier now for it because I feel much more comfortable in my own self. We also have studies of 92,000 trans respondents on a survey that people in that pool that had gender affirming surgeries, it was 98% of folks that were somewhat satisfied or very satisfied with that surgical care. So what we're able to see is as long as it's helping people, then we shouldn't restrict that. And I would like to add this as well. This is all doctor prescribed medically necessary healthcare as well. So the same processes that a trans person has to go to get a, bottom surgery, for example, a person with knee surgery also needs to get a recommendation from a doctor too. So at the end of the day, it is a medical procedure, and that's where we should be able to allow doctors to prescribe that healthcare when necessary.
Got you. Yeah, it's really great points on my word choice of drastic. I agree with you 100%. That's a very relative term, and it's very subjective. So it's like, for instance, like with myself, I consider being circumcised without getting a say on that. That was a little drastic to me, know. But
I agree.
At the same time, I broke my wrist and my elbow on the 1st of January, and I did not even go to the doctor or urgent care to have it reset or anything, or even get pain medication. And I would say that wasn't drastic because, and other people would disagree, the circumcision wasn't drastic. But the whole breaking my arm thing was, well, it's my body, my choice. What happened to that? And there was a reason behind me doing that. It was a lesson that I felt like I needed to learn. And I used that experience to gain humility that was much needed, because I had developed what I like to call a spiritual ego, or you could, I guess, a more, colloquial. Is that the right way to say that? A colloquial way to say it would be, I don't even know, a spiritual ego. Let's see, a psychological arrogance. That's what I mean.
I like that.
I like that. I do like that. Well, Yoshi, I really appreciated this call. It's definitely, it was great. You were very kind. You said you wanted to take a chill understanding of trans issues. We do have other callers on the line, so I would love for you to call back if you have any more specific questions at some point. Maybe not today, but maybe next week. To kind of ask more questions, maybe something more specific to something that you may be on the edge about. And but I do really appreciate you coming to understand, so you can be able to educate the people around you, and saying, like you said at the beginning, people should be able to just live in society. Who cares, right? Like we have much more important things to be worrying about than trans people. The fact that this new, administration is focusing 5 of its last executive orders on trans people is a little bonkers, right? You're talking about less than 1% of the human population in America. Like that's a little nuts, right? There are less people who are trans than there are redheads in the world, right? Like it's just it is just beyond me that we have spent already so much resources on trying to remove trans people from public life when, egg prices are still high and grocery prices are still high. And, and I think that this obsession with trans people and their existence is just going too far. And it has been for a while. So I really appreciate you expanding your education on that.
Thank you so much, and you guys are y'all were so nice. I say you guys like us. I'm from the north or something. I'm from Central Texas. Y'all, y'all are so kind too. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you so much, Yoshi, and we hope you call back again.
All righty, thank y'all.
Yeah, bye. All right. Nice. So while we take this moment, I am going to announce the schedule for later this week for this week on the line. So I'm trying to see what days are days. Okay. So we have on Sunday show with Matt Delahunty. I know, right? At 2 p.m. Central Time. And then we have Skeptalk Skeptalk with Forrest and Roxanne. At 6 Central Time, Chewed Gum with Alyssa and Eve was Framed. And then we have The Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty, Phil Ferguson, and we also have TACIS next week with me and Arden. So that is going to be next week. Great. Well, thank you so much. And if you haven't liked or subscribed, make sure you do that, or join the Patreon, because that's incredibly important, because we are over 150,000 subscribers on the line. We're becoming we're a big deal. All right. We're a big deal. So it's because of all the support that you give that make that happen. Also, don't forget super chats. We'll read them at the end of the show. And we already have the poll up in the chat for the loser of the hashtag Team Josie, hashtag Team Lux challenge. Whoever is the loser of that challenge will have to defend a position for 2 minutes, which is so stairs are DEI. Is that what that says? Stairs? Is that
is
right?
what it says.
Okay.
Stairs are
Okay.
DEI.
All right. Stairs are DEI. I'm like, oh my gosh, my eyes going cross-eyed. All
The
movies should
dyslexia
be
strikes again.
musicals. I know, right? All movies should be musicals, and liking other people is gay. So we have some really interesting ones ready and teed up to go. So yes, make sure you do hashtag Team Josie, hashtag Team Lux, to see who is going to defend those positions. The loser has to defend. Yeah. Lux, do you have anybody on the lines that you would like to speak to next?
I mean, it kind of looks like we could just keep on trucking in order, pretty much. We got a couple
Just
people who've
go
been
in
waiting
order?
quite a while.
Okay, great. We'll just go down in order, starting with Ruby. Her pronouns from Washington, as I'm trying to click talk, wants to talk to me about the most effective way as trans people to promote trans rights. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so trying to see some kind of hope, and I'm kind of getting frustrated with our local gay pride community group run by cis people who like to hide whatever important thing. Oh, it's happening in our offices, and let's raise money for the parade. And it's like, oh, it's so incredibly frustrating. I'm sorry. I would kill to talk to, if the average cis person I talk to was like Yoshi. Because the average cis person I talk to is literally just like, oh, I just don't care. Whatever. Oh, I didn't know. Like, wow.
Yeah.
And I saw you, which I'm a little miffed at because I got called away when you were talking on that webinar 2 days ago. 2 days.
Oh yeah. There was a webinar that Advocates Trans Equality put on. Yeah.
And it was like, and then I find out because I was sent there by the pride group, and it's like none of them showed up, and I'm like, do you want to even know what was said? You know what I mean? And no, that's fine. Like, wow.
Yeah. It's tough. And it's one of those things where this has happened throughout our movements. I always say that trans people have been in the front of every civil rights movement in the entire world. Trans people have been in the fight, from suffragettes to civil rights to queer rights, equality, marriage equality. And every time we fall because we're in the front lines, and everybody just marches on over our bodies as they get their rights that we work so hard to achieve. That's why I always say trans liberation. Once we have true trans liberation, all of us will be free as all humans. And so this is nothing new. If you can recall, or at least maybe this is history for some folks, when marriage equality, the Equality Act, which is a very important piece of legislation that's been trying to get passed for the last 40 years. In the early aughts, in the early 2000s, they tried to pass a equal rights, like kind of like an amendment to the Equality Act to try to get Equality Act passed, which stripped out all protections for trans people. And they compromised trans people's rights and humanity to try to win gay rights and also women's rights in the equal rights amendment. Now, after they sold us all out and threw us under the bus, they still lost. And it was one of the things that created a terrible fissure between the queer community and the trans community. So we are no stranger to adversity and people saying, oh yeah, trans people, but did you hear equality marriage is about to get struck down? And it's like, yeah, but we're like literally on fire at the moment. Like there are already so much happening to the trans community and the trans movement that we need every bit that we can get. And what we also realize, as I was talking about earlier, how HRC, Glisten, and Trevor Project have all had to do massive layoffs because of the way corporate financial grants have all been restructured that has limited their ability to get money. We are now starting to see yet again that we are here to have to try to save ourselves in a lot of ways. So that's why I like your question about how do trans people promote trans rights? And really, this is what I'm going to say: support trans-led organizations, like full stop.
Right.
Like HRC is not a trans-led organization, right? That we know this, and they're the largest group, right? They receive money from Raytheon. They have all this money, and they still had to lay off a lot of people. It's like gay bombs didn't pay for their freaking staff, and so we need to support because those small dollar donations mean a lot to the trans-led organizations. Right. Volunteering for trans-led movements is incredibly important as well. And also standing up with each other, right? Like, I don't know how many times I've called my trans friends and just like, how are you doing? Right. I had a board meeting for the Trans American Veteran Association, which, I'm on the executive board of. And in that call, one of the agenda items was just checking in on how every single board member was doing personally and emotionally in this trying time. Because I realized very quickly, as I work with like trans candidates as well, that trans people are the first people to ask another trans person, how are you? Are you doing all right? I know we're working hard, but are we actually making sure we're taking care of each other? Are we finding trans joy in our lives? Are we actually, making a point to survive? Like, those are the things that keep us resilient. And resiliency is a very interesting word. I've been wrestling with resiliency a lot over the last month. And what does resiliency mean? And one of the things that I have been trying to tell younger people in our community who are rightfully panicked is resiliency doesn't mean invincibility. Just because you can take a punch doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And we have to be able to weather with each other. We have to weatherproof ourselves to gather and really fight the incoming storm that is hitting us at full blast. And we are going to lose people. People will be lost in this movement, just like every decade that queer rights has been progressing through history. Our job is to try to build resiliency within ourselves, teaching our community how to take a punch and keep on rolling forward. And that's a really hard skill to teach. And that's our job as people who have been able to come out, be public, be able to weather the storm and understand that adversity, we're no stranger to that. Defiance, we're no stranger to that. Every day we walk out the front door as a trans person is an act of defiance. So why would it be any different when the laws are trying to do the same thing to us? So that's what I'm trying to instill in our community is panic when you can a little, right? But know that in reality, we have to be resilient and stand with each other. I don't know, Lex, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I think that that's good. I mean, I know that this is a caller who specifically wanted to talk to you because of your webinar or whatever, but like, yeah, I mean, I just moved somewhere and I still don't feel safe, even though I am in a place that is supposed to be safer. And And it's like, yeah, it's
Oh,
high
I
on my
know.
list.
Hi, I'm your northern neighbor.
Yeah, hi, yeah. It would be great if we felt like invincible here, but right, yeah, it's all about that chumbawamba, getting knocked down and getting back up again. But I also think it's important to establish yourself in a community outside of just trans stuff. You know, like I want to get to know people at my local yarn shop. I want to get to know people who go hiking. I want to
Right.
know people who
Right.
hang out at the gun range. You know, like I have hobbies and I want to meet people who are outside of my close sphere of just trans people because I want more people to meet a trans person, to establish relationships and then be like, by the way, I'm trans. You know, by the way, that thing that you're talking about, that directly impacts me. I had to flee my home in order to come here, you know, like, because there are still conservatives, you know, in
Right.
Washington, there are still conservatives. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's not just about, you know, being part of a trans community. It's about being part of your community. So everybody can get involved with becoming a valued community member, you know, offer to help your neighbor with stuff. You know, make sure the
Yeah.
children in your neighborhood feel safe, and things like that. Yeah, it goes beyond just trans activism, but that is a big part of it, obviously.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, it's like I still have. Okay, my spouse is going blind, so he's got connections with the blind community. And since the election, like I've had to back off from that community because it was at the time led by some very staunch, you know, conservative people.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting here like, oh, they're all like, where'd Ruby go? Oh, well, Ruby's having trouble dealing with the fact that you voted to take Ruby's rights away. And Ruby
Yeah.
doesn't want to know if you actually did it. You know? And yeah, scary times. It's so
It
scary.
is. It is.
You know,
But
and
Ruby, I will say
I
this.
got a
I'll
house
s-
of refugees too.
Mhm.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we got
Absolutely.
some
And
from Ohio. You know.
yeah, it's true. It's true. It really is. And I will say this, and it's hard to say because it's hard to have your rights taken away, right? Especially when we fought
Yeah.
decades to get rights, and it's hard to see rights taken away. It has a special type of hurt to it. But I was able to just about 2 weeks ago share space with one of my heroes, one living legend, Miss Ruby, not Ruby, sorry,
Yeah.
Miss Major, who was at
Mhm.
Stonewall, friends with Martha P. Johnson, Sylvia, Rivera, and I cherish every moment I get to spend community with her, and I get to sit with her and have her wisdom fall on me. And one of the things that she told me is, honey, we'll get through this just like we did in the past, because she's
Mhm.
been in the space where her friends literally got killed by police officers. She's been in the spaces where she was literally almost killed herself. She's been in a place where she's created homes of women that she calls her daughters, and have them live in the space and have them die in the process of having in those areas. And like, when she tells me those stories of the people that she's lost in her own life, and still trekking through all of it and still fighting every day, I get my well filled by being able to be with her, because she's seen it when it's the hardest. And right now, she tells me it's beautiful that I get to see the girls go out and just live their lives. And it's so true. The fact that we have more elected officials than we've ever had that are trans, representing office, the fact that we have generals and admirals and people who are trans. We've had people in power, people in every walk of life, people who are families, people who are married, people who are just going out there and just living and thriving as trans people, is a victory. Because it is
Mhm.
better now, even in all of this crap that is happening, than it ever has been in American history, which is hard to believe, but it's true.
Mhm.
So when someone like
Mhm.
Miss Major tells me we're gonna make it through this, that means the world to me, because she made it through when it was like a crime punishable by death on the streets to be trans.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I have to kind of hold that resolve and just hold it in my chest and be like, we're gonna make it, and I'm gonna take as many punches as I can for the community, but we got to make sure that our community is ready to take some punches so the next generation behind us never has to suffer this takeaway of our rights. And it's a lot. That's what we're gonna have to do, and it's not a perfect answer. But I always live by this philosophy: trans people, power is not going to be given to us; it must be taken. And we're going to take that power, we're going to take that space every moment we can, because there's no other way it's going to work. And no cis person is going to win it for us. We have to lead and bring in our own liberation. And so, go ahead.
No, it's the like you said, like I guess, I got to somehow find trans-led community. That's going to be a thing. And I keep bringing up what Martin Luther King had said. Our biggest enemy is actually the comfortable white liberal who will sell his comfort, sell his liberty for comfort. And it's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Lux, do you have any last words?
I'm sorry.
No apologies. No apologies. We're all feeling this way, Ruby, and we're all at different points of processing and understanding where we are right now. Let yourself be vulnerable. Yeah. It's important.
Okay. And I'm going to turn down the job that the local pride community wants me to do, of like, oh, do you want to run social media? And I'm like, that's not going to be good for me.
Well, Ruby, get your bag too. I mean, if it's unsafe, it's unsafe. Don't take it. But there isn't a lot of jobs right now in the equality work. But I'll tell you, as somebody who works in the movement, work, it's hard, because I consider myself I use the joke professionally trans, because I have to work in a as I'm working for trans people, I'm also working for my own liberation as well. You burn out twice as fast. And so protect yourself in that way, but also make sure you get your bag too. That's important.
I mean, even if you've only got a couple of months in you, Ruby, like, everybody has to rotate in and then rotate out. Like, nobody here is going to make it through a marathon. That's not it's not possible for us to maintain 4 years of momentum, right? That's why we need a lot of people. Right. So, like, even if you recognize that it's going to be toxic to you to do social media outreach, if you're suited to the role and it is there, even if you're only in it for a couple of months, like, get in there, get the work done, and then rotate out when it needs to happen. But, like, use that time. If you're not going to take it, if you're rotated out, use that time to actually rest and recover. That's something that I can't emphasize enough for everybody in the audience, is like, yes, we need you out here fighting, but also you're going to be fucking useless if you don't actually take the time to rest. If all of your time resting is spent doing this, we're scrolling, like, that's part of why I'm as frazzled as I am still, because it was not possible for me to completely disconnect during this move. The, like, 3 days that I was shoving stuff into a U-Haul and the 4 days I spent driving was the most peace I've had, despite how busy it was, because I literally could not look at the internet. I did not have time. So, like, if you're going to rest, make it purposeful, make it actually impactful. Like, rest is part of your productivity, but it has to be total and complete. And that time is also spent on finding support. That time is spent with your family. That time is spent with your dog. And then when you're ready to rotate back in, then you'll be refreshed and everything. But, like, keep that in mind. It's going to go through fits and starts. We're going to have to be very active for a period of time, and then we're going to need to rest. And then we're going to have to jump back in 3 months later, and we've got to kind of work in shifts a little bit. You got to, like, let somebody step in for you. And then when they're feeling fatigued, you step back in for them. That's how we keep this thing going.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you,
All
Ruby.
right.
I really appreciate you. Keep your head up. We're gonna get through this. That's what if Miss Major can say we're gonna get through this, then I have no right to say we're not. That's what that's what
That's
I
got to hit
say.
you so
Okay.
hard. Yeah. Yeah. For her to say that is like, okay, you really better believe it when she says it.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So for
Mm.
sure. Okay. All right, Ruby. Well, thank you so
All right.
much. Thank you for the call.
Yep.
Yep.
You have
Awesome.
a great day. Yep.
Yep.
You
You
too, Ruby.
too.
Thank you.
Bye. And it looks like Miserable Midnight had their call fail.
Yeah,
So
call
sorry about
dropped.
that. Yeah, I see that here. But no, and I'm really glad we took that call because I think a lot of us are feeling that way right now.
Hmm.
Look, I really appreciated how you framed up the idea of like rotating out because I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, I've been working in the movement now for 4 years,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, like it's tough, and like I'm not planning on leaving, but that's why I've been focusing very closely on like getting trans people elected. That's my like
Hmm.
little niche. I'm like getting into that because every time I talk to a trans candidate, that's where my hope is.
Hmm.
Just like, oh wow, this person's gonna freaking run for office in the era of Trump. Like, yes, let's go. Like, let's burn this shit down. Let's go.
Yep.
That's the hope. That's the hope.
Everybody has to focus on their thing too. I guess that's the other thing that I would add on is like you can't take on every fight. So you got to like focus on the one thing that you actually have control over. I'm zooming in and I'm just like, I just moved to a new place. I need to get to know people. I need to find out what work needs to be done. Like, and it maybe even won't have anything to do with transness because like there's a huge homelessness problem in this Pacific Northwest. Like maybe that's where my energy is going to go for part of the
Yeah,
year. But like
yeah,
I can't
exactly.
be in all places at once and nobody can. So focus on
Nobody
what you can
can.
actually do.
Like weatherproof yourself because it's a
Put on your
storm
own
right
mask
now.
first and then help
Yes,
somebody else. People always forget
exactly.
that.
Great. Great. We'll take the next call here. Robin, she, her, also from Washington. Advice for queer folks on how to find and build community. So it's another call that's very similar to the last one.
Piggyback.
But Robin, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, it really is just kind of building off of the last call. Thanks, Ruby, for that.
Mhm.
That was a
Yeah.
good conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, so shit's scary right now, and I know I'm probably not the only trans person out here who's doesn't really have a whole lot of people in their lives to like be there for them and to be there for in return.
Mhm.
And I've kind of always been like that. I've always been very introverted and not good at finding people. And so I don't even really know where to start. I'm very overwhelmed at the prospect of how do I find people to be around? And
Yeah.
I'm probably in a better position than most because I am also in the Pacific Northwest and I'm moving soon. So I'm kind of using that as an excuse to get to know new people. But,
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean, big time.
advice would probably be good for people who are in a lot worse conditions right now.
Yeah. This is a big one for me because I'm of a very solitary disposition. Uh, my trauma makes me feel like I feel most comfortable and safe when I am alone. So that
I
is
feel that.
bad for me though. Yeah, like it's bad for you emotionally in the longer term. It's like short term, this feels better to be alone, but then long term, it's like I have no one to share even good things in my life with. Like I just got done with this move, and while I was doing it, I was finding myself like imagining talking to my stream audience, and then I was like, that means you don't have any friends that you're excited to talk to, and that's a problem. Um, and like obviously I have a partner, and that's like, a good outlet to have. But I mean, yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm doing is like, yes, moving, great excuse to find a new community, find new people to be around. And like the thing that I'm doing, like I've said before, is just focusing on like hobbies, like what is something that I want to do, and then I will then meet someone. And this has been my advice for people for years. If you're trying to find friends, if you're trying to find somebody to date, whatever it is you're trying to do, just being in a physical space of something that you care about. And then you will meet people who have at least one thing in common with you. And the likelihood that you will then have other things in common, like these things tend to cluster together. If you go to the yarn group, you're probably going to find someone who's into D&D. You'll probably find someone who is into Doctor Who. Like there will be other overlap that you have. If you go to the gun range, you might find people who are like, also they keep chickens, or like, also they are a prepper. And so you'll tend to find these sort of clusters of similar hobbies. Like the type of person who goes to the gun range is this type of person. The type of person who goes to a hiking group, like, okay, that person probably also has like a lot of opinions about diet and health and whether you should take XYZ medication, like, so picking something and being like, okay, if I go hang out here, I will probably find people who are empathetic. I'm more likely to find someone empathetic at the yarn store than I am at the gun range. So just kind of figuring out where it is you can get your shoe in. And it only has to be one thing. For us introverts, it's can be difficult, but it's like, okay, just pick one thing. I'm picking the yarn store. Okay, I'm going to go to the yarn store and find out if they have a class or a day where people can just come in and work on their projects or something along those lines. And I'll just do that one thing. And then from there, I'll decide, like, do I want to go back there, or is there a different store or something? So you just have to start. And it starts with something casual. And then from there, you build a stronger relationship by making bids and being like, oh, how's your son doing? Oh, can I bring him my kid grew out of these shoes, whatever, something. It starts with small actions of mutual benefit. And then you can establish a closer relationship. Like, it is so overwhelming because it requires so many steps. And for autistic people, it's like, there's an increased difficulty of like, I can't even read the situation correctly. Yeah. So, I mean, basically you just have to do things. And that's the worst part for an introvert. Sorry.
Yeah. Robin, do you want to add anything to that before I go?
No, I'd actually like to hear what you had to say first, if you had anything.
Yeah, for sure. This is really interesting because I am very autistic sometimes. I have to my friends have to be into the things that I like. It's like a lot of times, because I love the info dumping. I'm all about that type of stuff. So for me, I really am digging what Lex was saying about finding people in like hobby, ways of doing things. Like, I love board games. I'm a big hobbyist on board games. I have so many like very niche, weird board games. Like, I have like a political board game. I have like a board game called Arc Nova where you're like building a zoo and all of that type of stuff. It's not, but it's like they're like difficult but fun, challenging games. But I love to play them, and I'm always like inviting people over. Hey, you want to play board games? You want to play board games? Yes, I am that person. I also like D&D and things like that. But the way that I will say, rather than reiterating everything that Lux said, is what is important is to find the group of people who fill your cup. And what I mean by fill your cup is like that allows you to feel comfortable and happy in finding that queer joy with community is really important, because right now we need to be working on filling our cups, because if you don't have a full cup, then you can't pour into others. And that is so critically important. And I think it's an important time for us to find community at the moment, because everything is happening so fast right now. The dust hasn't settled. There's nothing we can do other than react. It's like, oh my gosh, this executive order is passing. Oh my gosh, this order is going down. Oh my gosh, there's a story about this happening over here. It's just going to create panic and anxiety. And so right now, it's the most important time to get cozy and connect with your friends, be with community, because stuff's getting bad. And I'm not going to say it's not, but it's my family, my chosen family that are around me that make me know that I can. The fact that I know I have a board game night on Sunday is what I look forward to. All right. Like,
Gets you through the week.
Really, it gets me through the week. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know. And also, I'll ask a follow-up to you, Robin. When you're saying
Mhm.
build community, are you talking about movement work, or are you talking about just like the things that we're talking about, like the hobbyist and friendships?
Yeah, I think movement work could be part of it. I think that is a way to find community. But yeah, I was thinking more broadly.
Okay, good. Yeah, because the work is always going to be there. You know,
Mhm.
I've been doing this, like I said, for about 4 years now. When it comes to just like working in trans activism and the movement work, and work is always there. Like there's always work to do. There's always something to be able to happen. So like where I find what is more limited in supply is the community work of just having fun with friends. There's always so much movement work to do. So I think that's really important to understand too. It's
Mhm.
like there's always going to be a pride center that's doing something. There's always going to be some event that's happening. There's always a webinar you can join to, there's always an organization that needs money. But I think what's more important is finding joy, because I think that's the most important thing right now for us as a community to build resiliency.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's you were asking what I meant when I was saying build community. And I guess what I meant was like if you're going out and looking for something and you're not finding it, how could you step in and be the person to organize that for other people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That happens. Like sometimes, like there is nobody that has your niche, and you're the one organizing everything. That's why I have board game nights at my house. I'm
Yeah.
organizing.
Nobody else
It's
is
like I
taking
have a
charge. You have to
yes,
take charge. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Sometimes, like, listen,
exactly.
okay,
It's like
I'm that bitch who started a GSA. I'm that bitch who moved from the inner city to a school in the country and started a GSA because there wasn't already one. Sometimes you have to be that bitch.
yep.
Sorry, what does GSA stand
Sure.
for?
Oh, it's a gay straight alliance. It's like a club in school.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they call it something else now, but when I was a kid, it was GSA.
Yeah.
The school
I
I
think it's
work
so
at
good.
calls it GLOW,
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
gay,
okay.
lesbian, or
I like that.
whatever.
Or
Okay.
whatever. I
All right. That's
love
cool.
that. I mean, the kids, they say things like, I love how the young folks, my niece, she's like, I think she's like 13, and she was like, "Oh yeah, they're so zesty," and I was like, that meant that they're like probably gay, and I was like, that's so nice. That's such a nicer way to say somebody might be gay. Is like they're a little zesty. I'm like, I love that.
They're
Great.
flavorful.
Who
Like
doesn't
there's
like a little
implications
Yeah,
zest?
there. Yeah.
I know. Oh my gosh. I that's the benefit of having like a young niece. She gets to key me in on all the slang that's going down.
Yeah. I'm out
And
of touch. It's
still don't
true.
like it. I still don't get it though. I'm such a Thea. Like, okay, yeah. It's like, all right. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
It is like I heard all the words that you said, but I don't know what you said. Like I understood
Yeah.
all the words individually, but I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to take it out of context, but it sounds like you're happy.
Yeah. Well, Robin, did any of that help, or do you have any follow-ups you want to get in before we move to the next caller?
Yeah, no, I think this is something that a lot of people probably need right now, and I know I'm not the only person who's struggling with it, so it was good to hear your thoughts on it. Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And if anything
Mhm.
else comes up, just call back another time. All right.
All right, thanks very
Thank
much. Have a good
you.
day.
You
You
too.
too. All right. Well, we are going to have a little bit of a shorter show today.
Yeah.
But we have
We were
one more
packed at the
caller.
beginning. I thought that it was going to
I
go
know.
forever. We had like one
Yeah,
person
we
drop.
got I know. I'm sorry. Call back next week. And we'll make sure to get you in there. So we will take our last call. SB, he, him from India. discussing reasons for high trans ideation rates. Yes, what did you want to talk about?
Hi Josie, hi Luxander, how are you? Am I
Doing
audible to
good.
Doing
you?
Hi.
well. Say
Am I
again?
audible? Am I audible to you?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Am I
Yes.
audible?
You just got to speak a little
Yeah, yeah, okay.
louder.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So
It's
basically,
okay.
I am pro trans people. Like I
Hmm.
hold the position that everyone has a right to choose what they want to be. But I have recently heard this argument from conservatives that the argument goes like this: that like the suicide rates among trans people is like around 40%, which means that
Hmm.
it is a mental illness. That is what they are saying. I'm not saying that, but that
Mhm.
is what they are saying, and they're also claiming that like the modern DSM books, like they have changed the words and made it more woke. Like they are, it is like an agenda. Like what? How do you reply to that? Like I want, because I am like kind of illiterate in these topics. Like here in India, not a lot of topics, not a lot of
Yes,
topics.
understood.
So I
Um,
wanted to. Uh, yes, yes,
Yeah, so just so I can make sure. So it sounds like, you are definitely, just to reiterate, because you are a little quiet, but I'm just going to kind of restate what you said. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
yes, yes,
That
yes.
we know the number that, that's cited often, that over 40% of trans people have suffered some form of ideation at some point in their lives, and that conservatives kind of throw out that number and use that as a reason why people should not be trans. And also, you were talking about how the language that has changed in the way that we speak on trans people, a lot of people refuse to look at that because they think it's woke. And you're asking
Yes,
if,
exactly.
for
Exactly.
arguments, yeah, you're asking like, what could I say in response to that? Is that correct?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, great.
Exactly.
Great, great. I just wanted to make sure I got all that. Thank you. Um, so what I usually say when it comes to the ideation number that's thrown out, actually, it was the survey that predated the survey that I was able to run from the US Trans Survey in 2015, which surveyed about 28,000 people that were asked the question, at some point in your life, have you contemplated or attempted suicide? And 41% of that population said yes. And that was a lifetime figure. And that's the number that is cited. Now, what we do know about this is that this suicide ideation comes from, mainly, is that the reason that is so high is because of the fact that trans people are not accepted in general society. A lot of times, if we are, and this is how we know from society, if a trans person is accepted in their lives around the people that love them, either be a family member or another friend that affirms them, that allows them to be able to be who they are, that suicidal ideation drops significantly, to no higher than a cis person for a lot of cases. So when somebody says, oh my gosh, we shouldn't let people be trans because the suicide rate is higher amongst trans populations, the reason that it is higher is because of the bigotry and the transphobia and the laws that prevent trans people from being able to live full and open lives and be able to thrive. That is why the rate is higher. It's because societally, trans people aren't allowed to exist. So when speaking to a person who's trying to use that number, I'm like, well, the only reason that exists is because people don't want trans people to exist, so therefore they don't, and they hurt themselves for that reason. So that's what I usually say. Lux, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, yeah, not a lot. Like if people are saying, "Oh, well, it's just a mental illness," like there are a couple of different ways you could respond to that, and like one of the ways to respond to that is to say, "Okay, well, if I just agree with you that it's a mental illness, well, how do we treat mental illnesses? Well, we have to treat people and then find out what works." And it turns out that the thing that alleviates the mental illness symptoms is transition. So, like, I don't know if this will help you at all. It's like arguing with conservatives. Sometimes you have to kind of meet them where they're at. So it's like, okay, well, why are you being hateful toward mentally ill people? You understand that mentally ill people cannot help but be mentally ill. It's not like their fault. So why would we not want to approach those people with kindness and compassion and try to find what is going to alleviate the symptoms of their mental illness? So like if we just assume like we're going to accept that the conservative says it's a mental illness, like you could argue actually it's not a mental illness. And if you look at the history of this, you mentioned the DSM also used to qualify homosexuality as a mental illness. So it's like a question too of are the conservatives that you're arguing with, do they believe that homosexuality is a mental illness? Because if you could get them to agree that it's not a mental illness and that updating the DSM was the correct thing to do, then you could then use that to persuade them that being trans is similar in that it is a thing that's happening in the brain, obviously, but it is not a mental illness. But there will probably be conservatives in your country who believe that homosexuality is a mental illness and that, it should be treated like one. And I guess the question is just like, okay, well, like what actually is the problem that people want to fix? Do people want to fix the homosexuality? Because we figured out that you can't fix that, unfortunately. You have to just accept that people are gay. Or are they addressing the problem of the suicidality? Because if the problem that they have is that the suicide rate is so high, then the thing to address is what Josie was saying, which is to provide the people with the support that they need, which typically involves being supportive of their trans identity and letting them access medical care. So yeah, it's just like every situation you're going to have to judge differently. And some conservatives you'll be able to persuade with one argument and they won't be responsive to a different one. And you'll just have to kind of switch out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought on those notes only. Like even if we say it is a mental illness, like what do you want to do to them? Like let them have the rights that every other person has. Like that was also my kind of thinking of way. But uh, so these stats are like outdated, or like that's what shall we say, or like are they like not that, like they only show one perspective, not the actual what is going on? Is it like that?
So I'm
Sorry
just
for
trying
my
to understand what you were saying. So what you're saying is that the 40% is outdated, or the DSM is outdated?
I guess the DSM one, they say like, is it because we knew more, like we got to know more and we did more research about it? That's why
Yeah,
we
exactly.
Absolutely.
updated it.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
same thing
Okay,
with
yeah.
being gay. We researched being gay and we found out that it's not a mental illness, and that's the same reason why we've updated. It's like the all that's been updated really is what we call it. It used to be called gender identity disorder, and now it is gender dysphoria. But the criteria are more or less the same. You have to have a level of distress about your gender not matching your sex that is profound enough to cause some kind of impact on your daily living. Like that is still the criteria that's being used to diagnose people. So really, it's not any more woke than it used to be, except that we are not using the stigmatizing term disorder. That's kind of the only thing that has changed. But like, yeah, it's just like it's not a mental illness. It just is a thing that causes distress until you treat it medically.
And SB, if you want to argue with people who, let's say they're an engineer or somebody who believes in science, it's like you wouldn't teach a class from a book from the 1800s. You would teach a class with a book that has a little bit more update references and understanding, right? So through humanity. Yeah, right. It's the same thing. Like we understand that germ theory is a real thing, but before they used to not even wash their hands before surgery, right? But we are able to update our knowledge on given topics as we study them. And, trans people and, have been studied, and we are able to understand that we exist and we need rights. And this is the way that we treat gender dysphoria to be able to thrive in society. So it's just like a doctor prescribes better medicine over time, over the years, it's the same thing with trans people as well. So like if somebody's saying I want to use an old version of the DSM, then why don't they go ahead and use an old version of like physics as well, right? It doesn't make sense.
Why don't you use an atlas from 1970?
Yes,
Let me know how that
yeah,
goes.
actually,
Right?
yeah, okay. Thank you. That was my question. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that was my question. Thank you. Like, we don't have a lot of talk in India, basically. Like, it is kind of a taboo here. Like,
Mhm.
upon, like, a lot of things are taboo in India, so we don't talk about it. So, like, I want to know more, like, because, yeah, like, it, because, like, people are, like, really, like really ignorant and really hateful when I see them online, especially on Twitter and things like
Mhm.
that. So like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't want to say more about it. Like sometimes I get also attacked. So like, let's leave it that. But like,
Yeah.
thank you very much for having me. My English is a bit
Yeah.
broken, so I couldn't like exactly claim myself. Like, yeah, but thank you for taking my call. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Uh,
Your
bye,
English
Josie.
is your
Bye,
English is good.
Alexander.
Yeah, your English is good. So yeah, just keep on practicing. You're great. So thank you so much, and we definitely understood you. And thanks for calling in. If you have any more questions, just call in another time. All right. Thank you. Have a good
Yeah,
day.
I just
Bye.
want to, yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
bye.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.
We did it.
We did it. We made it through the calls. That
We
was
made it through the calls.
short and sweet. I really loved it. There's still time to get in your super chats for hashtag Team Josie or hashtag Team Lux,
It's true.
to be able to make sure. And there's, if you haven't voted yet, you go ahead and vote because it looks like stairs are DEI. So if you want to see who is going to do that, make sure you vote hashtags. All right, so let's
Yes.
go ahead
Hold
and
on
start us
1
off.
second. I have to
Yeah.
pee. So I'm
Oh
gonna
God,
leave
you're
for
gonna
2
leave.
minutes. Yeah, I'll be right back
Okay,
though.
for 2
I was just
full
like,
minutes.
I have to make it through the calls. But
Ah,
yes,
so do you
I'll
want me
let
to
you handle
vibe or
this
you want
first
me to
one.
wait?
Yeah. You
You
just do whatever.
okay?
Do whatever. I don't care. Tell the people how amazing they
Okay.
are.
Just vibe. I'm gonna
You
put
want me?
full screen on Josie just for fun. There we
Oh my
Okay,
go.
yeah.
God!
Not looking
Yay!
at my
Hi
green background.
everybody. Hello, everybody. I really appreciate you being here. It's been a long time since I've actually been on the show, so that's actually pretty exciting. And
Yeah, you
also,
abandoned us.
Arden, I know, and Arden, your air conditioner is incredibly loud.
Oh my god.
It's the word.
The Elgato noise mixer is not on. Why does that happen? I'm
Oh
so
my
sorry,
gosh!
everyone.
Amateur moves. And oh, there it goes. Okay. All right. Anyways, yes, it's Josie time. It is that amazing time. I've been gone for a moment. I've been gone for a minute. I was busy all January. I was in Vegas for like 2 weeks, which is a long time to be in Vegas. But I will say this: I used to play a lot of poker. All right, I used to play a lot of poker when I was younger. And I went and I played poker for the first time as myself, Josie, and I am going to tell you one of the coolest things is like using my poker skills and then flirting with people, like flirting with these guys around the table and just like making them be like super nice to me so I can like read them easier, as far as like if they're lying to me or they don't want to push in their chips to be mean or whatever. I'm just like play them. There was this one story, and I'm going to share this story real quick. So this, I've talked about the poker that I played. Oh yeah, and I got a spa day for my winnings. Okay, so I did. Your girl did well. All right, yeah. So there was this old man, probably in his late 70s, probably older, like, and he had the capacity to put a message on his phone, reach across the table and hand me his phone. It says, "Here, this is for you. Can you read this?" And I'm just like in the middle of a poker hand, like I'm just like, what the hell? So I look at it and it's like, and it's like it's got that old man text where it's like super huge.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you're absolutely beautiful. I do you want to have a friend? Da 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 da. And then I was like in the middle of a hand, so I was like, I put the phone on my lap, and then I look at it and it's locked, and I was like, oh, and I handed it back to him. I'm like, sorry, the phone locked. I was in the middle of the hand, so the phone went to sleep. So I can't read what you wrote to me. And he just like looked at me and he's like, because he couldn't hear what I said because his hearing was so bad. So for the next hour and a half, he just sat there pouting because it looked like he thought I rejected him fully, which I'm okay with. I'm totally okay with. And like there was these two like South American cuties next to me, so I was like flirting. I was flirting so hard with them just so he could see it. I'm just like, like I was just being super flirty. And he was just like seething until he lost all his money, and I was like, ha ha. Anyways,
It's like also
that's
did a
my
bad
biggest
job
story.
at poker.
Oh yeah, he did a terrible job at poker. He was awful. I think I took like probably $75 off him.
You know what's really funny is there's that one song that's like, you got to know when to hold them, all that. None of that's advice.
Yeah.
He's like, this guy gave me some advice and it was great. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. How do I know those things?
Huh?
Like, there's nothing in that song that tells you how to know when to hold them, fold them, walk away, or run.
But
not very instructional. No wonder that guy died at the end of the song.
It's a vibes. He was all vibes.
Yep.
He was just vibing. He was like, I wish I knew these things, and then maybe I wouldn't be dead.
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't be hitchhiking or whatever. Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, I did have a good night at the table, so it was a fun time.
I'm glad.
Anyways, yes. $5 from Zurith Moonpaw. What is the best D&D class and why is it Sword Bard? # Team Josie. Bard is right. That is the best class. Sword Bards are all right. They're all right. But thanks for the # Team Josie.
I like Spores Druid, but I made a Spores Druid, and then I had to quit that D&D game because they just were going at a time that I couldn't go. And it was like,
that's a shame. I would love to have a Spore Druid on my team. I would love to DM that. That sounds a lot of fun.
I want to be creepy. Like, I don't know. I just love the idea of like being a creepy death druid.
Oh, that sounds great. Too bad you're all the way across the effing country.
Well,
play
do
at
it
my
on
table.
Fucking Discord.
I guess.
I know. £5 from Mystic Minds and Analysis Tavern. Thank you for the super chat. It says the UK isn't in a great place as far as trans rights go. Understatement of the century. But our public transport and population density means more accessible communities. That's true. I do highly value public transport. It does suck about the US that everything is so spread out. But that is part of what makes me feel secure that like it's going to be much harder to do a full tilt takeover of everything because it's like, oh yeah, your military is based on like the East Coast. I'm all the way on the other coast. So there's good and bad to both things. They can just kind of straight up make all trans care inaccessible on the NHS. Whereas here it's more decentralized, which is like good in that way. But yeah, I mean, that's the trade-off. There's not like most people are not emigrating to another country though. So like make it what you can over there in the UK.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. 100%.
We don't have very many super chats. Arden says you got to get them in. You got to get them in.
Oh, you better
give us money.
It's going to be so short.
Yes,
to make the show last longer.
Yes, do it. Because I know the good shows is when I'm late to the meeting that I have right after this, because I literally work before the show and after the show because Arden and Jimmy are jerks and don't want to make the show during the normal time that the line shows normally air. So, and yes, I said it, Arden and Jimmy suck.
It's specifically Arden with her opinion on that too.
Yeah, it's definitely me. I'm the one holding it back.
She's like the manager middleman that we like yell at Arden about things, and then she has to more politely tell Jimmy about the things that we're frustrated about.
I am his ambassador to the mortals. Yes.
It's true.
Yes. No, Arden and Jimmy, I love you both. And and make sure you tell Jimmy that Josie says that I love him, because I know that will get under his skin.
True.
$10 Canadian from Jessica Gallagher. What do you guys think of season 2 of Squid Game? I really enjoyed the character development. Chu Hong Yu. It reminded me a bit of Josie. Thanks for everything, you guys. At the line, hashtag Team Josie. I enjoyed Squid Game season 2. I binged it like the day after it came out. And I also do love the performance of the trans character, because it was done by a cis person, but I understand why, because there isn't a lot of trans representation in South Korea, because it's a lot harder to be trans publicly in South Korea, so they're not like out and acting. It's kind of like where America was like in the 90s and the 60s and in the 80s. So it's like there were only cis people around really to play these roles. So I do think that it's important that a trans person was represented in the caricature of one of the most popular Korean shows that exist. So it brings that representation forward. So I did love it. I did love the performance. But yeah, I'm big fan of corporate dystopian fantasies, because we live in one. So I like to see somebody else write them.
I haven't watched Squid Game, but now because there's a trans character in the second season, I feel like I have to watch all of it, because now, if you guys don't know this, on my main channel, I do media content now. So I'm going to be like, oh my God, like every time a new thing comes out that has a trans character in it, I am now being forced out of my curmudgeonly ways of having to watch the new thing when it comes out. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't want to watch Squid Game. And I haven't. And now I'm like, God damn it.
Did you know
Now I have
that there's also a trans storyline in Alice in Borderland? Yeah, that one.
Did they make a movie out of that just now?
It's not a movie, it's a show.
Oh, they made a TV show, because it's a video game.
I
think.
I don't know if it's no. I think you're thinking of Alice, like the Alice in Wonderland video game. No, it's
That's
Alice
not what I was
in
thinking of, but
Borderlands.
it's okay.
No?
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, never mind.
I was
It is
thinking
a
of a
manga.
different. Oh, okay, cool.
It is a manga. So that does that. So maybe that's what it is. But yeah, it's a great show. But it's a cis person playing a cis woman playing a trans woman. So it's kind of like a little weird. But there's a trans storyline in it.
That's weird in a different way than usual.
It is, right? Isn't it? Yeah.
It's
interesting. It is
okay.
interesting. Yeah. So there you go. There's another. So now you got your South Korean literacy thing. Did I read that last one? I think I did. Anyways,
yeah,
go ahead.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Australian money. Thank you for the 20 Australian monies from Tammy B. Says trans flag. True.
Yay, trans flag. Trans flag.
Yay.
Yay. We had our little trans moment. I felt that. Lux.
We reached across time zones.
We did. We did.
Are you fully on the East Coast? We're like straight up on opposite.
I am.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. $5 from Melatonin Ali. Is it weird if I am a trans woman that I've interacted with a few times at work functions to let her know I'm here for her? We are in Texas. # Team Josie. This is hard. It's hard to be like, I can clock you. Hi. It is one of those things. So and this is up to your own safety, is I'll wear like a little trans lapel, maybe have a little trans flag on a keychain, and see if they see it, and then they might be like, oh hey, and they may be able to connect with that. But yeah, that one's tough. What do you think? What do you think, Lux? Because I have that happen all the time. It's like I want to be friends with this trans person, but I don't want to make it look like I clock them.
Yeah. I think this person is asking like, is it weird if I instant message a trans woman I've interacted with a few times? I mean, yeah, I would say
Oh,
maybe leave
if you
the
know
trans
them.
part out. Yeah, but if you like know someone at work, if you were to just be like, hey, I just, if there's ever anything you need, come to me if you need it, whatever. Like maybe a more generic kind of, if you ever need support in the workplace, if anything's ever bothering you, just know that I'm here. So I think it's not weird to just say, I'm here for you as a person at work who wants to support you. But just maybe leaving out the trans part. And then if your coworker wants to bring that up to you, just opening the space in the first place, I think is maybe your coworker will pick up on like, okay, this person figured out that I'm trans. But if you just say generally like, yeah, I just want to, if there's any way in, if you're like, I am also trans, or if you're like, as a woman, I want to reach out and make sure you feel supported in the workplace, like cis women showing solidarity, because I just don't know the gender of
Yeah,
Melatonia. I know that you've
neither do
super
I.
chatted before, but I don't know who you
I
are. But yeah, as a cis woman, if you can be like, hey, girl, like, I just want to make sure, if you ever have a weird interaction with this executive or whatever, like you can find a way in that is not explicitly like, I know what you are. That's my advice.
yeah, I agree.
$5 from
It's
Monkey at Typewriter. As a cishet guy, can I also feel unsafe? Or is that honing in on y'all's thing? Seriously, I'm still trying to get myself right. Hashtag Team Josie. I mean, I think that cis people can feel unsafe. Like, there's plenty
yeah,
of
I think
non-white cis
so.
people, for example. There's gender non-conforming cis people. Like, there's proximity to trans people. Like, my husband
That's a
isn't
big one.
100% in the clear because he's married to me. So,
Hmm.
like, as a tradesman
Yeah,
too.
and this speaks as well about vulnerability of like cis het people feeling like they, especially in masculine situations
Mm,
where it's like I can't show that vulnerability that I'm vulnerable,
mhm.
and yes, it's okay to be vulnerable, and to say, look, I don't feel safe is a very valid and okay thing to say. It's about how you cope with it and how you deal with it and how you build community around that is what is most important. So the fact that you're able to say I feel unsafe is a moment of vulnerability, and you should be happy that you are able to experience that vulnerability. There's a lot of people in the world that just feel like, oh, I'm safe all the time, I could walk around whatever. It's like, no, there's always moments where we may not be in the best situation. So $4.99 from EXJWJC. Purple heart. Yay, purple heart.
Yay. $4.99. Thank you. Sarah Wilson says, in my high school's GSA, we changed the name from Gay Straight Alliance to Gender and Sexuality Alliance. Good on hashtag Team Lux for being that bitch. True. Yeah, Gay Straight Alliance, or sometimes I would see, like Sexual and Gender Alliance, or it's like SGA, some people would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different little. But that was the popular thing, was GSA. Every school had a GSA. I graduated in 2011. So it was a while ago.
Definitely did not have a GSA in my school. Not in Texas
Yeah.
in 2005 was when I graduated. Oh my God, I'm so old.
I know.
High school was 2004.
Yay.
Anyways, $5 from is it Zakiaku? I'm just
I
gonna
would
say
say
it that way. They,
Zayaku.
what would you say? Zayaku.
Zayaku.
I like that.
Yeah.
They, them, Utah, holy crap. The Line has a podcast. Yes, it does. To everyone at the Line and everyone watching, love you all and stay strong together. Hashtag Team Luxander. Heart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My 2 votes.
Hey, I only have
$5.
4, right?
That's true. Well, yeah. We're going with low numbers of super chats today. It's okay.
Yeah.
$5 from Alia Shauna Silverbow says, board game night at hashtag Team Josies. I'm getting in the car now. Google Maps says it will only take me 42 hours to get to DC by car. Hashtag Team board games.
Man,
Yeah, true.
He says just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Mhm. Only 42 hours. Wow.
Only 42 hours. You should show up.
It's true.
5 pounds from the Fuzzy Logic. I'm a union equality rep. Can confirm stairs are woke as shit, and I wouldn't have any other way. Hashtag DI staircase. Hashtag Team Lux.
I'm gonna lose this one, and I'm trying to formulate my argument now.
Yeah, formulate it.
Uh,
That's you.
yeah, I think it is. $10 from Melatonin Ale, who I think in the chat said that they were cis. That doesn't tell me
Ali.
whether you're a cis female or not.
Ali, like Alexander,
Is it Ali?
like Alejandra, like Alejandra.
Well,
So it's like
it makes me
Ali.
think of beer whenever I read it, so I'm gonna
I
maintain
know.
that.
Fair enough.
I don't give a shit about pronouncing your names correctly. No,
Remember that when you put in hashtag Team Josie.
it's true. Thank you, Melatonin Ale. How do y'all balance staying informed / being a good activist and good mental health? I'm directly impacted and need to stay informed, but I feel like I'm spiraling to paralysis. I mean, kind of the advice that I gave earlier in the show, which is to
Yeah.
get violently offline. Throw your computer out the window and then put your phone under running water. And I think that will pretty much get you there. Yep.
I am actually I haven't even told Arden or Jibby this as well, but I'm probably going to start streaming a YouTube channel again and start streaming Twitch again because I'm just so tired of processing the news. I'm like, I should get paid for this. So it's like I'm going to process the news in front of an audience because then it gives me like that life balance that I need. Where it's just like, okay, I'm just going to save it for the stream. So stay tuned for that.
Compartmentalize.
Yeah. It's a political forecast with your friendly political weather girl, Josie Caballero. Anyways, plugging my own new things. $10 from Mod. I sent my boy clothes to charity last week. Tomorrow will be 6 weeks since I wore men's clothes. Granted, times are getting scary, but I've been the happiest I've ever been. Hashtag Team Josie. Awesome. Congratulations. I remember when that happened to me. It was so great. I had like probably, I don't know, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 worth of suits because I was like really professional and I had like consultants and stuff like that.
Oh, that's
and
tough.
I handed them all away to the LGBTQ center in my local area, and I was like, "Give this to a trans man, please." And that was so liberating. It was so liberating. It was. And now I got cute girl suits.
You're going with the Hillary? You got the pantsuit?
Yeah, I do have a pantsuit, but I also have this like suit with like a skirt. So it's like the same color, but it's like a skirt suit, which I really like. So it's hard to pull off, but I can do it. I can handle it. It's good. It works.
Nice. $5 Canadian from Siobhan, thank you. Says, when I first came out, I couldn't leave the house in pants of any kind because they would ratchet up my dysphoria. Hashtag Team Lux West Coast Solidarity. Yeah, like you just like I have to wear a skirt kind of thing. Because it's like the skirt kind of frees you up. You don't necessarily have to deal with the situation if you've got a skirt. A nice flowy skirt. Yes.
Yeah, so good. Get a nice A-line going. Oh, five. Yeah. $5 from Kaleidoscope Green, just showing some love. Well, thank you. I appreciate the love.
$5 from Zurith Moonpaw says, Swords Bard / any Paladin multiclass for the win. Hashtag Team Spore Druid. Yeah, I wish I knew more about this.
Who does Spore Druid go to?
Me.
It goes to Lux.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes, and I should have said Eloquent Bard is the best class because that's the College of Eloquence. That's the best one. But a lot of DMs don't let you play it because it's too overpowered. Because you can just convince everybody to do everything
in all the
for
places.
you.
Yeah, put your tongue back in your mouth.
It's like,
I know what you bards are like.
It's like, hello, queen. Can I have your kingdom, please?
Yeah.
Roll for persuasion. Ha! 35.
Yeah,
It's like, wait, what? $5 from Melatonin Ali. Because the voice of God Arden commanded it. Thanks y'all for keeping me company at work. Hashtag Team Josie. Absolutely always happy to.
Mhm. $5 from Mira G. Thank you, Mira. Says, thank you, Lux, Josie, Arden, and everyone at TACIS for everything you do. Hashtag Team Josie. That
Aw,
takes
thank
some of the
you.
wind out of what you just said.
I think it sweetened it.
Oh, sure. That's funny.
$9.99 from Jason. Missed you both. Here is a housewarming hashtag Lux, hashtag Team Lux. I like
Thank you.
that. That's sweet. Yeah. Put up some decor.
Yeah,
Use that
someday
money to put up some
I didn't
decor.
realize that this paint was so green until I got all my lights set up, and now I'm like, wow, there's nothing I can do to change that.
Well, you called the dragon into existence, so
That's
it's
true.
kind of, I think this is more
I
your
just
fault.
wanted
You
to decorate
manifested
it
this.
green, and it only works if there's contrast. You know what I mean? Now it's
Now,
just gonna be green on
yeah.
green.
Ooh, now you gotta have to
Whatever.
do like maybe the green and black, like your like the back of your chair there. Like
That's true.
that
Yeah, and then I'll
that
just
might
be a
work.
disembodied floating head as my camera's contrast, like, just yeah, anyway. $5 from
The
Monkey at
three
Typewriter, thank
genders.
you. Yeah. Says, bards are basic, and for people who pay rent in horny jail. I said it. Hashtag cleric crew. Hashtag druids are fluffy clerics. Hashtag team switch and deluxe. Hashtag team CHA caster noobs. Casters are noobs.
Wow.
Wow, there's so
Charisma
many shots fired.
casters. CHA,
Charisma casters are
CHA, the
noobs.
charisma casters. So
Gotcha.
that's like warlocks, bards. I see you, Monkey at Typewriter. This is the thing. One of my mains is also a cleric. So, all right, like, and my DM homebrewed the love, it's a love cleric. So like everything and all my sacraments were like based in like love and like all of this stuff. So it was really fun. It was a good time.
Gay?
That was yeah, totally gay.
Yeah.
$20 from Tammy B. That's me. For TACIS to make it last longer, don't read this word. It's a meaning for the phobia of long words. Okay, here we go. Hippopotamonstrosky pedophilia phobia is
Wow.
just a stretch. The show. Yeah, I mean, I was the right person to read that because that just looks like a bunch of letters slammed together with my dyslexia. So
Yeah.
it definitely
Like
made it
hard
last
mode.
longer. Yeah, that was hard mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$5 from Haley Geringer says, missed you both and glad to have you both back, but hashtag Team Josie. I know. We need more
Aw.
spicy callers so that I can demonstrate my verbal acuity.
You have verbal acuity without spiciness.
That's true.
$5 Canadian from Devora Margot. I love astronomy. All these James Webb's images on my TV are amazing. I find it so hard to cope with how bigoted people are. I agree with the James Webb images. They are the rings on Uranus. Oh, those are so good. Those were so good. Go ahead and say it. Go, Lex.
That's all
I
that
see
needs
you.
said. That's all that needs
That's
said.
all that needs said. Okay.
Thank you for another
Damn
$5 from Melatonin Ali. Says clarification. This person has identified herself as trans, the coworker, and we've talked about that. I know her from personal interactions at LGBTQ functions and others. Okay, then that's less weird. Yeah, I would encourage you to reach out and just be like, hey, I know we've discussed this in the past, and I just want you to know that there is someone in your corner if there's ever an issue in the workplace. Like, or I guess if you're trying to establish a friendship outside the workplace, just like you have to make that judgment based on what's appropriate for your field. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. $5 from Zerith Moonpaw. Rolled monster stats for my trans woman sword bard Var. Human level 3, strength 14, dex 20, con 18, intellect 16, wisdom 14, charisma 18, hashtag Josie the Bard. I mean, that's a pretty buff
You got some really lucky
character you
rolls
got
on your
going.
establishing.
Like, look at that. Like 20 dex, 18 int, 18 charisma, 14 wisdom. Like, damn. That's like a god mode at level 3. What is this? What is this?
Mhm. Crazy. $4.99 from Zero Cat Daily. Wow, that is a sad life that you're living. How will Trump's executive order affect trans people? Hope you didn't talk about it. I mean, which fucking one? Like, again, as I said before, what's gonna happen is a protracted legal battle. So, like, the whole thing about don't comply in advance. I mean, first of all, don't comply, but, like, especially don't do it in advance. Like, that's what we had that call earlier about, like, youth care being impacted. You know, this executive order that says everyone under the age of 19 can't receive this care, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, states are going to countersue. The New York State Attorney General said, like, hey, by the way, you would be in violation of New York law if you stopped providing this care. So whether your funding is at risk or not, you are legally obligated to comply with state law. So yeah, I mean, it's going to affect trans people in myriad ways, myriad different ways across the country. Some people are going to be more impacted than others. And yeah, we're just gonna have to keep fighting the good fight, pretty much.
That's right. And the thing that also was really frustrating is how they're essentially burning down the libraries with research. So
websites.
all of the studies, they're pulling the studies that have anything to do with trans people, transgender is in the word, or pregnant people or pregnant person. So they're also going after abortion stuff too.
Or climate change.
And
like anything about the
yeah,
climate change on NOAA. Yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully that stuff is
It
backed
is.
up somewhere.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. I know people in research and they're freaking out too. $10 from Jimnick06. I've developed some skills while dealing with my own struggles and burnout. Thank you, Line, and the community for all that you've taught me about being a better ally and activist. Hashtag rotations. Hashtag put me in coach. Hashtag Team Josie. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the $5 from SJL. Says, tagging along with Tammy B's idea, Lake Webster's in mass native name is Lake Chargaga Gogmanchau Gaga Chabaun Gangun Gamagog. See, the thing is about Native American stuff is that you don't even pronounce it the way that it looks, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's different sounds in their languages that I don't know how to make, so someone has to put up something that's either in Welsh or something that's in Irish, and then we'll be fully on the I don't fucking know what that says train.
Yeah. And that was Team Lux. You earned that one.
Yes. Thank you.
$10 Canadian from Cartoon Hero 1986. Oh, that was the year I was born. Darn, missed the show. Just wanted to say there is a new documentary featuring Mae Martin talking about gender and nature. I highly recommend it. Also, you two are awesome. Keep up the great content. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for the $4.99 from Knits a Trap. Haha. Says, thank you all for sharing your mental/emotional bandwidth and having these convos. Art. Hashtag Team Josie. Hashtag since I had to pick one. Yeah, it happens.
Aww.
I consistently don't do as well when Josie's here. That's because you have it's hard to compete. You know, I'm just got to give it to you sometimes. It's hard to compete with such brilliance.
Oh, stop it. It's the community. They're the ones.
It is.
It's the hashtag Team Josie squad. Even Arden loses to that sometimes.
It's true.
It's only when Arden rigs it is when she wins.
Yeah. She can just tweak the numbers. She's like, I'm just going to find some votes.
See, there she goes. She goes. $5 from Malatone Ali. Because take my money, I'm a cis woman, and also autistic on social interactions are not my friend. I get it. Totally. I'm really good at masking social interactions.
Thank you for the $4.99 from Coffee Mom. Coffee Mom says, Josie, I'm so old. High school was 5 years after I graduated. You can't be old yet because that means I am old and I refuse to grow up. Hashtag team old Josie. I was going to be like, oh, you graduated in 2004 when I was 10 years old. And then I didn't say that. But now I've said it.
It hurts. It hurts so much.
Years keep coming and they simply do not stop coming.
Yeah, they don't. Like these they have like gray hairs that are peeking through, and it's just like it's giving me an excuse to dye my hair deep purple again. Like I did a really deep purple once, so yeah, that was fun, and it looks dark inside, like it looks like this color
and then you go
inside,
in the light,
but when it's just like poof. I love it.
Nice.
My hair is so much longer now. It's gonna cost me like $500 to do. Anyways, it's a thing for coloring textured hair. 50 Donkey Kong Kronas from coins with a K.
Yeah.
From Body Bit again. With the flags, got to do it because the flag that is becoming a thing now. So there it is.
Yay! Thank you for the $10 from Ari Turner. Says, I'm trying hard not to spiral again after a really bad last week and going back to the gym since it helps with my mental health, but I'm terrified to go back as a pre-top surgery female to NB. Advice, hashtag Team Lux. I mean, like my advice on going to the gym is don't think about other people at all. People at the gym are probably going to see you as a masculine woman, and I cannot give you the gift of not caring about that, but don't care about that. Like I don't talk to anybody in the gym unless it's like, hey, are you about to get off that machine? Like, so just don't think about other people at the gym. Other people at the gym are not thinking about you, or at least they shouldn't be. So I don't know. Just wear a sports bra.
Yeah. $5 from Kaleidoscope Green. Josie, do you know what the VA is going to do with treating trans individuals? Hashtag West Coast. So right now, I will say this. All services for trans people that have already been available are still available at the VA. I cannot guarantee for how long. I do know that there have been some key people in the administration that were in the VA administration that focus solely on minority veterans. They've lost their jobs. So who knows how long that's going to last, but right now they are still treating trans people. So it is like that until it's not. So I am doing my best to try to prepare us when that happens.
It's just like no good news, unfortunately.
No good news.
Yep. $5. Thank you from Crystal B. Says, hello, hashtag Team Lux. Yay. Thank you for your donation and for your vote.
Yes. $5 from Alishana Silverbow. Okay, it's going to take a few hours longer to get there. I have to pick up my Get typewriter first. Hashtag Team Josie. Hashtag board games are the best games. I agree.
That was the last one. My system's not loading, but there's another one that just popped up. There we go.
There it is.
One more.
There we go.
One more.
Last one from Melatonin Alley again says $5 from Melatonin Alley. Thank you. Says, don't know Welsh or Irish, but here's a tongue twister in Spanish. Oh, okay. Parangaricutiri-micuaro? Parangaricutiri-micuaro. A volcano in Mexico, and there is also a song. Hashtag Team Josie. I've been doing my Duolingo. I don't know that word, but I've been doing my Duolingo.
That looks tough. All right. DEI or stairs?
Stairs or DEI? Are you ready, Lux?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Loading up the clock. 3, 2, 1.
I'm getting really tired of these people who feel like they need everything built around them, okay? Like literally the very architecture of our cities. You look around and you're like, there didn't used to be there should be a bathroom there and there's not, whatever. Like every single building you look at and you're like, oh, these people with their functional legs, they need everything designed for them, okay? Like a ramp, girl, a ramp works for everybody, okay? But you think you're special with your 2 functional legs and you need stairs to get into everything, okay? And like, don't even get me started about the cardio people, okay? You're a minority of our population. And you think that we need to design buildings in a way that gets your steps in? Extremely self-centered behavior, okay? Elevators work for everybody, but you need your stairs. Ramps work for everybody, but you're like, no, the world revolves around me, actually. And like, it's also the seeing people, okay? The people who can see the steps. Disgusting. I'm running out of things to say. What else? What else about stairs is DEI?
That stairs?
Hmm?
Are you arguing that stairs are not DUI? Because it sounds like you're
no. What I'm saying is that this is like a privileged minority of a minority who expect the entire world to be built around them, even though there are other things that would be more accessible to a broader range of people. Like we could design the world in a way that works for everybody, but these people with their stairs, they think they're so special. They think we need to cater to them and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars architecturing every building to have stairs. Like how much more conceited and self-centered could you be to be like not supporting ramps everywhere and elevators? I don't get it. Anyway,
I'm sold. The hundreds of thousands of dollars on like all building infrastructure, like that costs billions and billions and billions and trillions of dollars.
Just build a
but
fucking
those
ramp.
Stairs, those stairs. That's where we're losing the bottom line. Elevators, super cheap.
I mean, and the space. Because you got to account for the space that it takes up too. There's much more like the entire rest of the building has to change around the stairs.
What about escalators? Are they DEI or no?
They're not as DEI, but they're on watch. They're on short notice.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, I got
exactly.
it. I got it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm sold. Well done. Well done. Well, everybody, that is the Transatlantic Call-In Show today. We had some great calls, and if you haven't signed the Patreon to be on this list, then you should. And, you know, be on this list because we got the coolest music at the end of the shows. Out of all the shows, this is it. Who doesn't love this little jingle? It's so good.
Get your name on there. Access cool,
I know,
private
and the line
stuff.
is at least this list is really long now. I'm like running out of things to say.
Just like
bye,
me.
everybody.